Today is Wednesday, December 19th, 2018. Want to talk with you guys about some things I've been feeling that I think are relatively important for me to discuss. I'm a little bit beat up right now, a little bit broken. Kind of torn up inside. Very sad. And what it is you know, at church in Hillsong, I've been having some, hard times dealing with people. Kind of been viewed as a little bit of a someone who they could tell something's just not right with me, I guess. And make a long story short, today I had a sit down with Darnell, Liz, who's another lead pastor, Jeanette, who leads the translation team, and we had a sit down where we were trying to get to the root of the issue, why there seems to be some type of, if you will, bitterness inside of me, something that's not really working out too well, that makes me I guess project it onto others. And I guess through conversation, really raw conversation, I made the realization that my challenges in church have a lot to do with my feeling as if Pastor Matt, the main pastor, and now Darnell, if you will, like second in command in the church, as if they don't like me anymore, as if I've done enough bad to not be liked by them. And those feelings stemmed from interactions I've had with them, where first with Matt, I don't exactly remember. Oh, I do remember the topic. It was about this girl, Charisma Greenwell, who she misunderstood an action that I took because I emailed her superior, if you will, saying, hey, I'm here to volunteer to translate. And it seems that maybe Charisma took that the wrong way, as if I was trying to overstep her. And she went to Matt, and it kind of became a little bit of an issue because he felt like I was creating unnecessary trauma, if you will. And Charisma afterwards apologized for the misunderstanding, but I felt upset because Matt, I felt as if he wasn't really listening to me or my side, and that he had cast judgment on me. And then when I went to him to say to him, hey, I feel like, you cast judgment without really hearing my side of it, he, got upset with me. And pretty much he was like, Mike, you see, this is the kind of thing that, I can't really put up with right now. And I get it in retrospect. He's running a large church which is going through a tremendous growth spurt, and this individual need of mine at the moment, as the main pastor, because again, it is a big church, it's something that instead of being supportive of him or the church, was kind of creating unnecessary tension. So I do get it and I do understand it, but that did hurt me, that I guess that he was bothered by me. I'm gonna pause and start again. And now most recently with Darnell, where I guess similar thing. I could see the frustration in his eyes and in his face and in his body language and in his tone towards me, that he's upset that yet again there's some issue where I'm not getting along with someone, or while I'm not submitting in the church in the way I guess that they would like to. And you know, I could see his frustration and his body language, and that created like this feeling of bitterness in me as well. So this morning we all had to sit down because with the translation team, I'm not allowed to translate because they could see that there's something not right in my heart, I guess. And because I'm translating for people, you know, it's important that anyone who is translating has the right spirit, the right heart in mind. And I agree and I understand, because we have direct impact on people's lives who are coming to our church with greater needs, you know, people who are dying, people who are, you know, maybe suffering through cancer or broken marriages. And we have to be, if you will, in the best place and position that we can be, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. And they could sense, they could see that something's not quite right with me. And they could also sense and see that there was some type of bitterness that I was holding towards Matt and Darnell. And I guess in our conversation this morning, which was a really raw conversation, raw in the sense of like really trying to understand what's happening within me, you know, I guess the realization occurred to me, something that I guess I've always known, which is that, and the way that I said it to them, I guess when I broke down at the table, you know, in front of them, was that I guess for me, Matt and Darnell represented, if you will, father figures for me. And, you know, when I let them down, when I disappointed them, when I felt them getting frustrated with me, it was just a, I guess this reminder that for some reason, I guess, I never feel like I'm good enough. And that feeling of not feeling good enough stems from a couple of things. You know, it's tough to deal with the idea that your father made the decision to not raise you, to not be in your life. I guess I wasn't important enough for him. I wasn't important enough for him to seek me out, for him to think about me, for him to hug me and tell me that he's, I guess, proud of me, or shit, even punish me or say that I did something wrong. Never had that. And when you grow up that way and you realize that you weren't important enough for your own father to seek you out, it hurts. Then on top of that, my mother, who you know, she did as good of a job as she could, you know, raising me on her own. And I know that she loved me, especially when I was a kid. But then there came a point in time where I guess I failed her when I stopped meeting her standards, And I was no longer, I guess, I don't know, enough for her, because that's how she's always made me feel. I'm gonna pause and start another part 3. With my mother, everything started to go downhill in the year 2000, I believe it was. Up until then, we had a pretty decent mother-son relationship. You know, typical growing pains as a teenager, but nothing extraordinary. But 2 things happened in the year 2000 or 1998. Actually, no, it was 1998, not the year 2000. The first thing that happened was I was suspended from Syracuse University due to academic failure. You know, prior to that, I had told my mother that I was struggling with this thing that I had just identified called ADD, attention deficit disorder, where I was having a hard time focusing on classwork and going to class and finding the motivation. And in retrospect, maybe it wasn't exactly ADD, maybe it was more like depression, because prior to Syracuse, I had been, you know, bullied significantly. One could argue emotionally abused. High school was really tough for me. Had to fight most of my time in school and put up with a lot of abuse mentally and psychologically. And when I finally got to college, I for the first time I started to feel like I was being accepted by people. And because of that, my whole focus revolved around my wanting to be approved of by my peers, and that's all that mattered to me. I didn't care about school. School wasn't a priority for me. My future didn't matter at the time, because I finally was feeling accepted by people. I was finally becoming the popular one, and that took over everything. So much so that I eventually failed out of school because I wasn't going to class, I wasn't doing work. So I'm sure that the ADD thing played a part in it, but in retrospect, I think a lot more of it had to do with my dealing with trauma that I had dealt with in high school and not feeling like I was good enough. So when I failed out of college, my mother, that really destroyed her. I'll never forget the day when I told her. She broke down crying, and she even like screamed out loud as if someone had told her that her son had died, you know. So that was part 1. Part 2 was around that same time frame, 1998, 2000. That's when I found my father, and I started spending time with him, and that's when I communicated to my mother that I had found my father. And I told her that I wanted to, you know, build a relationship with him, because, you know, when you grow up without your father and then you finally meet him, you know, there's a lot that you want to know about who he is, you know, how genetically that impacted who you are, and figuring out why he wasn't a part of your life, and then finally feeling as if he is a part of your life and wanting to feel, I guess, valued, like I maybe do matter to him. But my mother didn't take that well. She in fact took it as an insult, you know, and that's when the beginning of the decline of our relationship started. I became almost like an enemy to her, because how dare I want to spend time with my father. And ever since then, it's been an extremely rocky road between my mother and I. Everything she criticizes. There's nothing that I can do where I don't feel like I'm, you know, doing it wrong or not good enough. Or so my I guess you could say the larger part of my life now has been one in which I've been a disappointment to her, you know, and I constantly feel that way, which is why I stay away from her. I'm gonna pause and start part 4. So in conclusion, on my mother part, you know, that's why I avoid her, because, you know, she's gotten me to a point where I feel like I'm a bad person, not good enough. If I were to draw how I feel, I would draw this stick figure, if you will, because I can't really draw too well. And I would paint it in with dark spots, because that's how I feel. Constantly like I'm this less than better person. Like I'm, you know, not good. And I think that everything that I do, such as the whole expensive car, the Rolex, or watches I should say, the whole Harvard thing, my being a certain person, my reaching a certain level in life, all has to do with my proving to my mother and to others and to myself too that I am worthy somehow. You know? So coming back full circle to Hillsong and Darnell and Matt, you know, these two guys, they really took an interest and a concern into me, because, you know, when I first came to the church, I was growing spiritually, and they were there for me during some really tough times that I was going through. And once I got through those tough times, you know, they've been nourishing me as the leader that I am in the church. And when things started to get hairy, as they always will whenever there's human interactions, I felt like I was somewhat of a disappointment to them. You know, like and more importantly, I started viewing them in the context of my parent-son relationship, where I'm used to being abandoned. Used to, I guess in my mind, I'm not good enough for anyone. It really hurts. I feel like I'm I don't know. I feel like I'm this empty void that no one, except for your mother, no one has really seen anything good in me. And I know that it's a lot of negative self-talk, because I know that there are people who have found value in me. I know that I've impacted people's lives positively. I know that I've impacted you guys positively, being the best father that I could be. I know that I've impacted people's lives in church. I know that I've impacted people's lives in my career. Overall, I know that I've done a pretty decent job. But when you, I guess it is this really big burden that I struggle with. You know? Like, how unimportant am I? How little did I mean to you? That you didn't care to look for me as a father. I get it, my mother was a pain in the ass. I get it that she maybe even used me to hurt you. But I can't fathom the idea of, you know, ever having my kids in a position where they feel like they're not good enough. You know, everyone in my life, I feel like, has given up on me. Except for your mother. Your mother, I really don't deserve her. So that's why with this whole Hillsong thing, that's why I have this heart issue. Like Matt, you know, I guess I disappointed him enough where now he doesn't have time for me. And Darnell, I could see it in his eyes that he's frustrated with me. And I do agree that as pastors, they should be able to demonstrate more patience and more love, regardless of how much of a pain in the ass or difficulty I might be. But at the end of the day, they are human. And now I feel like 2019, because every year there's some journey, there's something new that I set out on. 2018 was me, I guess I don't remember anymore what it was. But 2019 is going to be me trying to figure out, I don't know, what my self-worth is. What value do I have? Feeling like I am good enough, believing it. God, this morning I felt like when I broke down, like I went to this place that I've never, or at least I don't remember ever being at before, where I felt like I turned into a little boy. I was a little boy in the corner of that Starbucks. I felt like a 8-year-old boy. I was in a corner crying, shivering, trying to figure out, where's my father? How come he's not here? How come he doesn't care about me? How come I'm not good enough for him to seek me out? How come my mother no longer loves me unconditionally? How come her love for me is conditional on how successful I am, and conditional on how much I hate my father or don't want anything to do with him? So there's that little boy inside of me that at the age of 42 I got to deal with and figure out, how do I make that boy mature? And that's the journey that I'm on. How do I get that boy to feel as if he's not a bad guy? As if he is fine the way he is with all his flaws. And to feel that he's loved. Because you know what? I don't feel that way. Outside of my wife and my kids, I don't feel love. My father doesn't love me. He sees me as a commodity. Now he contacts me when he needs something, when he needs advice, advisor. I don't even know what the love of a father looks like. That's the other thing that's tough for me. Like, how do I not only how do I be a father, but at the same time, how do I create this feeling of being a worthy enough person to a father figure if I don't even know what that feels like? I don't know how to explain what I'm saying. How do I create for myself that emotion that I try to create for you guys when I hug you, when I tell you that I'm proud of you? how do I recreate that when all I want is, I guess, to feel like I'm good enough? And how do you do that for yourself? That's what I don't understand. You know, my entire life has been seeking other people to say, you're a good guy, you're good enough, you look good, you're smart, you're successful, you're attractive, you know, you're good enough the way that you are, you're a good son, I'm proud of you, I accept you how you are, I love you unconditionally. You know, how do I create that feeling within myself? Love myself unconditionally? Look to God, and I do believe that He does love me unconditionally. And I know that this working through what I'm going through right now is God-driven. I get that. I don't know. Anyway, I leave you on that. That's what I'm going through. I fucking hate it. You know, I hate my life sometimes. I have everything in the world that's great. People would die for my life. All it took was one fucking man to say, no matter what, I'm gonna be there for this kid. I don't care what his mother does to me. I don't care what. I don't care. I'm gonna be there for that kid. That's all it took. And my life could have been dramatically different. That didn't happen, so now I gotta figure this shit out.